Hello, Internet! Welcome to another episode of That Random Podcast Show. That geek culture podcast show with a really misleading name because it actually has something resembling a structure, I guess, but we'll never tell. I'm your host, the digital desperado, Tyler Chansey, and with me as always is the Fox-tastic, Michael Mosley. How you doing?
I am doing a lot better than I was last week when we were supposed to be recording this. But that's not here nor there. And you're going to be busy this weekend, and I'm going to be busy this weekend. So we're actually going to do a quick little, I guess you could say, filler episode.
I guess you could kind of call that. It's also still appropriate episodes, not a whole lot's going to happen. The good news is, unlike anime, that's going to be the exception rather than the rule. Oh, did I go there? But yes, we will
Neo
be having very
Yokio would
busy.
like to say hi.
Oh, man. That will be a topic for another time, but something tells me you're getting a little bit of some fan backlash for not liking the Jaden Smith opus that is Neo
Oh,
Yokio.
yeah. We were like, oh, I can't wait till we talk about that. I've had a few people, well, especially one person, especially on Twitter. Our show got attacked by somebody who really loved that show. But yeah, we'll do that for another episode.
If you're listening, bless your heart, but work on better insults. Yeah, we'll save that for another time. Because for now, we do need to talk about a great rise that has happened in a certain fandom. A fandom that I am a part of, a fandom I appreciate, and also a fandom that I want to wring the neck of every now and then. Something big happened recently that has got the internet ablaze with speculation, discussion, and a bit of cringe. I'm, of course, talking about the McDonald's problem that's been going across the nation, where select retailers have gotten a little bit of the elusive limited run 1996 Mulan Szechaun teriyaki dipping sauce, which has led to a very violent appearance of some ardent Rick and Morty fans that have been basically harassing the employees at the McDonald's restaurant, causing outrages, doing everything but basically burning the restaurants to the ground, trying to get a bit of that delicious, delicious Szechuan sauce for either themselves to say, hey, bros, check this out, or to sell it on eBay for like $400. Either or. And it's kind of made me really, really want to just not associate with this community anymore. It is bad, folks.
Oh, okay, so you brought this up before recording. We were actually going to talk about season three of Rick and Morty, and then the whole Mulan sauce thing happened. So, so as a lot of people know, I actually enjoy My Little Pony, and we are actually going to bring this up because of we are going to talk about the movie.
Hmm.
But I know how it is to be in a fandom that's less than appreciative, and I like Rick and Morty. We've talked about on the show plenty of times.
Oh,
We
yeah.
made references to it and everything, even including in our opens. We've not so subtly made references into about them. So obviously we're both fans. So you a bigger fan than me because you like to delve deep with Rick and Morty's philosophies. So go ahead and tell us about your issues with this sauce issue. Because at first it sounded like you like, oh, I'm a fan of McDonald's so much. I was gonna make a joke about that, but it's like, hey man, you
it,
do you.
it was actually a bit of mislead. It was actually misleading because another thing of note happened recently of this recording. But yeah, I actually do love Rick and Morty, and it's actually more or less because I love the styling and sensibility of the co-creator Dan Harmon, the guy behind Community, Harmontown, Harmon Quest. I love that man. I think he's brilliant. And I've mentioned this several times. I really do love Rick and Morty. I love it. I love how how it's a smart sci-fi show when it wants to be. Like it's the great paradox. It can be both intelligent and so unbelievably goofy to a dumb degree, but it's handled so well you really don't care. I like the characters. I like the plots. I like how the episodes can go back and forth between crazy sci-fi concept taken to its dark extreme, or basically an episode-long parody of other stuff like Jurassic Park, Fantastic Voyage, The Purge, a bunch of stuff. But I'm afraid the fandom, this very, very small niche of this community, by the way, have glommed on to the more, let's say, unsavory elements of the show and have idealized it in a way that reminds me a lot of when the movie Fight Club came out, where people started wanting to do fight clubs of their own and started, glorifying something that the movie actively emphatically says is a terrible idea and is dangerous. I'm of course talking about the
Kind of
fan.
like oh man, what was it? We were just talking about it earlier. People starting their own fight clubs. Oh well. Continue. I just lost it.
Except instead of this being like Tyler Durden in Fight Club, it's been these guys glomming onto the character of Rick Sanchez on the show, who everybody who's seen this is, of course, the mad scientist with a portal gun that has access to the infinite multiverse. And he actually, more times than I can count on the show, he basically keeps comparing himself to Bugs Bunny. He doesn't really care. He does what he wants. He, gets away with a whole lot, except there's where the danger lies. A lot of people have glommed onto him kind of having this nihilistic perspective on the world that since everything happens all at once, everything is infinite, everything that can happen will happen, nothing matters. Got certain fans have started adopting this style, thinking he's got it all figured out, and have used that as an excuse to basically act like a bunch of assholes. I'm going to say it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And it's also led to a certain level of entitlement. Like, I've actually seen rants from idiots on Facebook that have run to these McDonald's and have blew like hundreds of dollars to get to this one location for a possible like bottle of this sauce. And they're like, I deserve this sauce. I did all this. I watched the show. I get it. I have the intelligence to comprehend the complexities that is Rick and Morty. And for that, I demand this Szechaun sauce. And it's cringe to me because for two big reasons. One, Rick and Morty is smart, but it's not that smart of a show. That's the weird line it rides. Yeah, go ahead, lynch me. Come find me. For one, and two, the Szechuan sauce gag that the show keeps referencing is a gag of itself. It's a joke. The joke about it is that Rick the big joke is that people were thinking Rick has to stand for something, Rick has to fight for something, Rick has to have something that drives him, and it's one of the best gags ever of season 3, where he basically completely wipes out two major galactic forces, and you find out the reason why he's doing it is because he wants to get Mulan Szechuan teriyaki dipping sauce exactly as he remembered it from 1996, and it's meant to be the most absurd, you've got to be kidding me excuse ever. It's like finding out that Luke Skywalker wants to destroy the Empire and bring peace to the galaxy because he wants to bring back snowballs. It's the silliest thing ever, and it's hilarious, but it's meant to point out just how chaotic Rick is. To attach meaning and something grander to finding this Szechuan sauce is pretty destructive. Especially since McDonald's did this because of the popularity in the brand, because of the gag. And it started as them handing off a drum to Justin Roiland, to the guy who voices Rick Sanchez, saying, "Hey, check this out. We're cool, right? That's free marketing. It's part of the social media age." And then they thought, "Hey, let's release some more of this stuff, for the fans. A little wink nudge." And the fandom basically said, "Gimme, gimme, gimme, gimme more!" And it backfired. Like, it's strange. Like, the fandom goes on about this part of the fan goes on about how stuff is meaningless, how things are wrong, and this blue-haired mad scientist is their ideal, and yet they are actively basically buying into the social media marketing craze by by a fast food company and are making themselves look like a bunch of howler monkeys with incontinence the entire time.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest issue anybody's had. Like these people have borderline, no, not even borderline. They have harassed employees just because of this silly sauce that's coming back, by the way, in December.
Hmm.
People do this all the time. Nintendo does it all the time. They did it with the SNES Mini and NES Mini, and then they're like, "Oh no, we're bringing out more copies." They did the same thing with the Switch, and oh, what restaurant was that did it recently? Somebody else also did some special. Oh well, McDonald's does it with the McRib all the time.
Yeah, they do.
So like this artificial marketing. Well, that's not even artificial marketing. This marketing stunt that
It,
these
it's
pull, it happens
it's
often.
savvy. It's savvy marketing, but the thing is, this community is just showing their ass, making this seem like it's the second coming of Christ, and nobody's looking good coming out of it.
Yeah, and the worst part is the creator himself has denounced this. Was like, hey guys, don't act this way. This isn't the way I want the show to be represented. I'm just doing this because
Yeah,
it's fun. I enjoy doing these things. Yeah, even he admits like sometimes we just do dumb things in the show. Like, calm down. The show's not that smart, and you're no genius for actually like getting the references or enjoying the show. And
yeah.
there's even a new space themed animated show coming out to TBS. I think I forgot the name of the show, but no,
The Orville, I think.
which was it?
Seth MacFarlane's live action show, The
Oh no,
Orville.
no, it's an animated show that's coming out soon.
Oh,
It looks slightly cheap, but it looks like a TBS animated show. But the people were complaining, were like, "This is like a Rick and Morty ripoff." What's this Rick and Morty ripoff? I was like, "No, Rick and Morty is not the first to do these kind of crazy things. Kids in college do these kind of short films all the time, and that's where Rick and Morty even came from."
yeah, yeah. The second half of the team, Justin Roiland, that's actually how he broke through of it. He did a bunch of student projects, a bunch of silly little stuff with his friends,
Yeah,
and he kind of became this like underground animation guy. And then he met Dan, and then stuff happened.
yeah,
Rick and Morty conceptually started as characters he made, which are basically very vaguely veiled ripoffs of Doc Brown and Marty McFly. You can actually track it down. It's called Doc and Marty with an H, and it's very crudely drawn flash animation. And if you just change the design a little bit more, that's basically proto Rick and Morty.
yeah, and he even talked about it. Like it's never like that big of a secret. You don't have to dig. You don't even have to dig that deep.
Oh
Like,
no, you do
yeah, like the
not.
creators themselves have even like shown off a bit of concept of the old short and even talked about it.
Hmm.
And and I thought that was always great. Like these shows happen all the time. That's how Adventure Time. Yes, that's how Adventure Time and regular show happen. You know, you
Exactly.
get the college kids who make these cool animated shorts, and then when they finally get to the industry, they get an actual team. They can put
Yeah.
real animation behind it, and they make into this great thing.
Better production values to really sell the idea.
Yeah,
And you brought something else. You brought something else up as well. This is what I was telling before when I say how the show is both smart and stupid. It's smart with how it handles its characters. Like the one thing it treats seriously is the family dynamic, which is prominent in season three. Like they actually give these otherwise thin characters layers to them and make you care about them more, while still having Rick just be this kind of black hole of meaninglessness, which he himself is a part of. Which is why when season three concludes, he's actually on the low end of the Smith family. He actually becomes one of the lowest status characters because of this nothing matters philosophy, and it actually kind of ends with people kind of saying, "Okay, fine, you do your own damage. We're actually going to be happy with what we have." That's what I took from it, at least. But the better jokes and better things that happen on the show are literally improvised in the writing room. It is literally, hey, dude, wouldn't it be cool if blank happened? And they said, yeah, that's cool. And let me say right now, when you have a team that good and you have writing that solid, there's a lot of leeway when you can do stupid stuff. Like the infamous Pickle Rick episode. That happened because in the writer's room, Dan walked in and said, "Oh, and Rick is a pickle." And they're like, "Okay," and they rolled with it there. There wasn't some thing about him wanting to blah 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 something something. No, no, they thought it would be funny if to get out of therapy, he turned himself into a pickle, and they threaded an episode around that. And speaking personally, Pickle Rick's one of my favorite episodes. I'm not demeaning it. I love the hell out of Pickle Rick, and not just for the rat massacre that happens, although that's pretty awesome. But
I enjoy that and Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Yeah,
But
like you said, season three, it went through more dynamics when it came down to the Smith family, and it's really weird because this fandom, I'm not even blaming the entire fandom, but this fandom,
this fandom glorifies Rick Sanchez, Tyler Durden style as being the guy who has it all figured out and he's cool. But the dude is suicidal, an alcoholic. He has ruined every serious relationship he has been with. He has terrorized and traumatized his family to the point that, if left unchecked, Morty could basically turn into Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. And Summer found a more stable relationship being in a Mad Max inspired world, shooting it up with a bunch of raiders. That's how messed up it got. And the family had the wherewithal to say no, no more. We're getting away from you.
yeah, and it's not like the show keeps it a secret. Like pretty much every season,
This is
yeah,
upfront. This is very
yeah, like
upfront.
even at the end of season two, like in almost every season, we see that Rick's actions, the way he thinks, his philosophies, does more damage to him and others than any good that would come out of a scientist of his caliber. Like this man can do interdimensional travel. So somebody that smart can do so much good in the field of science, but because he knows so much, he has no more compass to actually do it, and he has no real rhyme or reason to want to do it. So really, it was more,
It's the
it's more selfish than
it's
anything, and I don't know why anybody would think like, oh yeah, Rick has it all figured out. It's like, no, man, he has so much figured out that he's pretty much detached himself from all reality, both physically and
I
mentally.
actually I actually wrote kind of a rant on my blog about this. I called it Rick and Morty's awful fan base. Don't worry, it's a bit clickbaity, but I'm talking about specifically the Szechuan sauce crazy ass people, because everything I was saying before about how Rick should not be held up as an ideal and how he actually enforces dangerous behavior, the show itself even acknowledges. In the Pickle Rick episode I mentioned, there was this fantastic monologue where he finally goes to therapy and he gets dressed down by the psychiatrist, where she says straight to his face that she believes that he uses intelligence as an excuse for him to act mentally ill. It's the uh, and that for me was probably the greatest, self reflection about the show. Rick Sanchez, as you mentioned, is a brilliant man. He's done fantastic things in this world. He developed interdimensional travel, kept it to himself because you know how dangerous to be in the wrong hands with the Galactic Federation. But he also lost sense of morality and sense of self because of his knowledge of the infinite, his traveling of the infinite. And it's actually one of the things that the show does that basically say implicitly that having this sort of knowledge of basically being a mad god would rob one of humanity and one of morality, and that leads to some very dangerous self-destructive behavior, which we've seen multiple times. But even on the minor Earth level, where he just stays by himself, like Pickle Rick is self-contained. It's just on Earth, and the psychologist, this therapist, basically says, you think it's boring to get help because you're too addicted to the thrill because you haven't gotten your stuff figured out yet, and you don't want to have yourself figured out because you want to justify being the smartest person in the room by having this sort of anti-hero vibe to you. And as I said, it's one of my favorite scenes of the episode because it balances perfectly with what's basically high octane action of him, killing people with improvised office tools and fighting Danny Trejo in a gun battle while he's in a freaking pickle suit. And they juxtapose that nicely. And it's amazing that I've actually bumped into these people who always repeat you need to have a really high IQ to understand Rick and Morty, all the complexities, and right there they're using the idea of them being smart to justify being having this elitism to them. And let me just say this right now, I've dealt with elitism a lot when it comes to multiple fandoms. It never looks good on anybody. It doesn't look good on hardcore gamers trying to slander game journos. It doesn't look good on animation purists who go after, lower forms of animation, like on whatever the heck like McFarlane has, most of it justified. It never looks good on even the most ardent of critics. It never looks good on anybody. And that's what maddens me about the fan base of Rick and Morty. It's and I hate that it's come to a head where they're basically, some of these guys are going to get sued. Some of these guys are going to get hit with fines. I see it coming, and they are probably going to smile and think they are in the right the entire time. And I want to punch every one of them in the face. But that's me. Michael, what about you?
You know, you could always start a fight club. So if you want, you could do the Rick and Morty Fight Club.
First rule of Szechuan Sauce Fight Club: you do not talk about Szechuan Sauce Fight Club. Second rule of Szechuan Sauce Fight Club: if you fight, you get Szechuan sauce. Third rule of Szechuan Sauce Fight Club:
There is no rule 3.
there is no rule 3. Rule 4 of Szechuan Sauce Fight Club: here, drink this Kool-Aid. We got him.
Yeah, and my whole thought on this whole Mulan sauce thing, it really goes to show just how fast a fandom can just lose
Turn
their
on
yeah
you.
they can just lose their minds. And with the time of internet and YouTube and everybody
Social
with social
media.
media and everybody with cameras on their phones, it's just going to get worse.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I always thought like no matter what fandom you get into, it's going to get horrible. Star Trek has it, Star Wars has it, Rick and Morty has
Mm.
it. Um, even innocent shows like My Little Pony has it, and those are the kind of ones that you want to avoid, but unfortunately you can't. You can't ignore them because they're just going to get worse. You can't avoid them because they're going to take it as I'm superior and nobody has the intelligence to go against me. And when we have issues like that within a fandom, you have to choose. Do you actually like the fandom enough to try and defend it? Or are you just quote unquote casual and it doesn't bother you? For you, I'm sure it bothers you a lot because of how much you really enjoy the show and you enjoy being part of the fandom because the references and how dumb yet smart the show is.
Yeah.
For me, I'm somewhere teetering on being like, I wouldn't cosplay as Rick and Morty as a certain co-host has, but
I regret nothing.
and you shouldn't. And from being close to someone who really enjoys the show to the point to where I really can appreciate the show and I can appreciate the fandom for the people who actually act right. Um, I understand why people be bothered by this, whether you're a fan of the show or not. And as somebody who's also like, well, if the show ended, if the creator decided, hey, this is it, fourth and last season, let's get this over with, I would be okay with that. Like I wouldn't be sad. So
I would probably shed a tear, but all the good things have to come to an end.
yeah, yeah, and let's hope for Rick and Morty, the fandom doesn't cause the show to actually end.
I really hope not. Like I said, Dan Harmon has made some very good stuff, and I respect him as a creator, and I really do hope things move on. Move on in a good way. And thankfully, we got through this without talking about the other stuff the fandom's been doing, which will just make this episode go on a lot longer. And we are only human, so let's move on to another thing that's been happening at a very prominent fan base. One considerably larger, I'd say, than Rick and Morty. One that's been around for a very long time. One that has a very close, very personal place in many nerds' hearts. I'm, of course, talking about the galaxy far, far away, Star Wars. Because two big things came up recently. EA finally released an open beta for Star Wars Battlefront 2, 2017 Battlefront 2. From here on in, but when I say Battlefront 2, it's 2017 Battlefront 2. Sorry, pandemic. They released an open beta for consoles and PC, which I participated in. And of course, Disney dropped a brand new trailer for Star Wars Episode 8: The Last Jedi. And one of these things made me excited as all get out. The other one made me want to drink myself into a stupor. Take a guess which.
The trailer was so awesome, you wanted to drink yourself into oblivion.
Michael, I love you, but you should know me better than that. Actually, yeah, let's start with the good first. The trailer for The Last Jedi. I really have nothing really bad to say about it. I'm actually more excited now for the trailer, seeing how Rey and Luke, kick it off. I can't wait to see more of Kylo Ren's more of Kylo Ren's emo angst, which is actually kind of endearingly charming in its own adorably terrible way. I want to know more about the First Order, Snoke, the Resistance. I want to see more Poe Dameron. We got to see more footage of Captain Phasma and Finn fighting. I'm like, I want to see more of these characters. I loved them so much from The Force Awakens. I want to see more of that. And I guess the Porg that showed up, and everybody's either in the anti-Porg camp or the pro-Porg camp. That little hamster Batmont creature you see. People are like, I want a plushie. And people are like, no, it's ugly. It's Disney trying to make toys. They're trying to make Ewoks happen again. I'm ambivalent to it. It's just a cute little thing to be in front of it. Although I think you said you want to see what the heck's going on with those like crystal foxes that popped up.
Man, I want to know more about those things. I mean, yeah, little pork thing is slightly adorable. It's like ugly cute, and I like the little bird like sound it makes. But yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
really weird. I was like, you know what? If you can make because Star Wars has always had weird creatures, and
Remember the Minox from Empire
yeah,
Strikes Back?
and the Ewoks are mainly made for marketing. Like George has admitted that a lot of the creatures he makes and a lot of stuff he puts in Star Wars it was for family friendly atmosphere and probably even a little bit of marketing because he was making bank off of Star Wars.
Nothing wrong with
Oh,
that.
absolutely not.
But go
But
on.
and that kind of stuff fits into Star Wars. Like almost every movie you get a new you get at least one new creature, whether it's in the background or the foreground. So when people complain like, "Oh, BB-8 was only made for toys," "Oh, this Porg thing is made for toys,"
Which Star Wars have you been watching?
what all of them. I mean, man, Jar Jar Binks, the Ewoks, the
There
Wookiees.
is there there is an expanded universe story about a character in the prequels who had two lines to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's treated seriously as canon, and it was
Well, that's
sold as a book.
well, again, like I said, Star Wars they always adding in
It
stuff.
was it was. I'm of course referring directly as to the Death Sticks guy. Look it up. I'm not joking.
Oh, that's okay. Boba Fett had like three lines.
Boba Boba Fett right there. All he had going for him was a cool design.
Yeah,
Gets killed off in Return of the Jedi, but of course the fandom's all like, "Oh my god, he's amazing!" And
yeah,
so they brought him back. They made merch off of him. They kept putting him into the video games. His daddy Django got his own Star Wars spin-off game. Yeah, it's all marketing, and I got nothing wrong with that. But as always, I'm also just a sucker for big space opera stuff, and I got a lot of that, a lot of cool space battles, a lot of interesting stuff, and I like how the ships and designs clearly look like they're developed as extensions of what was before from the series. Like the new walkers we see briefly looks like they're upgraded from the AT-ATs. The new ships are clearly upgrades of the TIE fighters, the X-wings, and I actually got into Star Wars through the Rogue Squadron games, so I have a particular fondness for the ship designs and the ship stuff, more so than the Space Wizard stuff. So
yeah,
I'm all
yeah,
over
yeah. And
that.
that's what I love about Star Wars. Like they always change things up a little bit, and they update something that's a long time ago and far away. It's like, well, they can have that today. That would be great, please. But like the X Wings, the newer version that they had in Episode 9, not Episode 9, but in Episode
Trailer
7.
for the Last Jedi. Episode
Yeah,
7. Yeah.
episode that like when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's a really cool redesign. Like it still looks like the classic, but it looks like it's updated. I like that. And in
Oh
in this
yeah.
new ones, we get a couple new fighters. I was like, you know, yeah, I could see why they would change things up, why they would upgrade things, especially the new Empire. how they
the First Order. Yeah,
yeah, the First
yeah.
Order,
With the,
how they would want to keep everything from the Empire, yet that put their own little stamp on
improve
it. But with that said, with this trailer, I am very happy that we actually get more Finn, because in the last trailer, all we got was like one shot of Finn being unconscious. This one, we actually see Finn, and he's grown since the first movie we saw him. He's actually a fighter now, and
Oh my gosh, that scene where it looks like he's going to fight Captain Phasma.
oh,
Oh man, I fist
I,
bumped. I was
yeah,
pumped.
I can't wait for that, because my problem with the first movie was we didn't get enough of Captain Phasma after they made such a big deal about her. So I was hoping she'd be more prominent in the sequel.
It looks like she is here in this one,
Yeah.
and Finn had a fantastic character arc in The Force Awakens. I want to see that continue with The Last Jedi.
Oh, especially with that new
So
awesome outfit he's wearing. That looks like it's part of the First
he
Order.
like he's infiltrating them somehow. I don't know how that works, but I guess we'll
Yeah, it
find
looked
out.
like he was under arrest, but yeah, with this new director they got for this one, because
Ryan
yeah,
Johnson. I
Ryan. He, man, you can tell he's a fan. Those shots, both close and wide, were fantastic. Like the
the
shot
com-
with the Arctic fox. Don't know what that is. I still haven't gotten. I've emailed.
we'll find out. We'll find out. There'll probably be a bunch of supplements later,
Yeah, I've asked
but
about that, but I haven't gotten word back from him yet. But the wide shots we get for them, you can see that there's like more than just two or three of them. Like there's a whole herd of them.
the shot composition looks fantastic, and the CGI looks reasonable.
Especially the red
And
sand. I want to know about that planet. The literal red
oh
sand
yeah,
that they have in that planet is amazing.
oh yeah, everything looks great. And as I said before, I'm curious to get those crucial questions answered. Which I can't help but feel as if that's how a lot of how people who saw the original Star Wars felt when they went to see Empire Strikes Back. Like they want to see, you know, more about Darth Vader, more about Luke, more about how the Empire operates, and I'm hoping we get some of those questions answered. Now, I've mentioned this before. I've only tangentially talked about it, but I do know there is a part of the Star Wars community that actually doesn't like the new direction that Disney's been taking the series. They want the original, I guess, the Legends timeline to be established again. Like they want to adhere more to that old stuff. Mostly the books and the expanded universe stuff, and and it feels like a lot of it's mostly just hating on change, like calling Rhea Mary Sue. She isn't.
Well,
Trust me
I
on
think their
this.
biggest problem is, hey, I spent all these years on this expanded universe, and all of a sudden you just get rid of it. I can kind of see why they hate that, because there's one Sith Lord. Oh man, I was just thinking about it today. I forgot his name, but there's one Sith Lord that like changed.
Sith Lord, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I said, Sith Lord.
Right.
Who changed the way the Sith operates. Like you can only have one paddle.
Darth Bane.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
That's actually one of my favorite Sith Lords of the Expanded Universe. Except him, Darth Bane is still canon in the new canon of Star Wars. They had him pop up in the Forgotten Fifth season of the Clone Wars,
Oh,
which was then
see.
put up on. It was put up on Netflix, and he popped up because Yoda basically went to not Korriban, and
Well,
there was a licensing thing, and he dealt with like the shadow of Darth Bane because they blatantly mentioned Darth Bane. Lucas has said continuously that the Clone Wars is part of the official Star Wars canon, which means tentatively Bane is still canon, and Disney has kept the prequels and the previous canon basically intact, with the exception of Rogue One and that Han Solo spinoff that's coming out. So that's still tentatively there, but I'm actually of the mind that there are good ideas I liked in the expanded universe stuff, but a lot of it was silly due to it not being regulated nearly as well. Like the Yuzan Vong War, the crazy yet kind of awesome background for the Millennium Falcon and all the people it had before it, and then there's the stupid stuff that happened with the Fate of the Jedi, which I think it was like the last major series I read that was the furthest along in the future of the original Legends timeline, and it went stupid so darn fast I stopped reading. So in a way, I wish more of this out there stuff was involved, but at the same time, I'm glad a lot of that guff got cut. But as I said, I'm still interested in these characters. I'm still interested in what this new take is going to have, and
Well, my thing is,
I
I'm glad this time we actually see like actual Snoke in here, not just some giant
oh yeah,
hologram. And I'm kind of disappointed that looks like they were mostly going with CG. I was kind of hoping they would go with practical makeup like they did with
I,
Palpatine, but
I don't know. I don't know what trailer you saw, man. There's like that one shot of him like reaching out and they zoom up on him. That clearly looks like practical effects and makeup, man.
as it may, I don't know. It looked a bit CG to me. Like,
No, no, dude, I saw Tarkin.
I'm gonna have to go back.
I saw reanimated Tarkin in Rogue One, and you and I had a long discussion of how kind of fake that looked. This was real. This was real in this shot. But like I said, I'm okay with Rey. I love Finn. I love Poe. I'm okay with these new characters. I'm even okay with Kylo Ren. Yeah, go ahead, lynch me, see what happens.
I don't care what anybody
And
says. Kylo Ren is actually a pretty good like villain.
villain,
I don't understand why people really dislike this. Like, oh, he wanted to be like Darth Vader so much. Yeah, the movie made it clear why. So I don't know. Maybe I think people just like jump to conclusions of why they don't like something.
I don't like change. I don't like things. It should be like the same. Wow, you're starting to sound like a little whiny guy with a red lightsaber that I like to make fun of every now and then.
Yeah, it makes it even worse. Those same people are probably the ones who complain. Oh yeah, episode 6 wasn't even that great. It's just I keep calling it episode 6. Like yeah, it wasn't even that great. You know, it just reminds me of the original, like Return of the Jedi. It's like wait, but isn't that what you wanted? It's like it's just a retelling. It's like that makes no sense.
And
Yeah, that makes no sense. You want everything to
I
be
am
the
always
same.
I am always of the mind that a retelling is fine as long as the presentation is solid. And as I said, the original Star Wars actually was kind of lopsided and focused more on its style than its characters. With The Force Awakens, I felt more about the characters this time around. So the improvements have been made, but now we're basically getting into fandom clash territory. Kind of going with something resembling a theme here, but I do want to talk briefly about the Battlefront 2 beta and the giant elephant in the room regarding that, or the giant mind reading tentacle monster in the room if, we're going to kick Rogue One while it's down. But I'm going to say flat out, Michael, have you played the Battlefront 2 beta?
Yeah, yeah.
I played some of it, and I have to say right up front, the gameplay, pretty great. I like it. It's got a good foundation. It's brought back enough stuff from the original Battlefront games that I'm appreciating of it. I like the battle point system. I like the map design. I like the new specialized classes. I like the new heroes. I like the ships. I like they brought space battles back. There's a lot here I like. It reminded me of why I love the Star Wars games, why I loved Pandemic's Battlefront 2 in 2006. There's a lot I remember and loved. And then they put loot boxes into it. And they did it in a way
I
that makes me
I
angry.
told you what happened back when I forget which episode it was, but we talked about this briefly. You were excited about it, and I told you it would happen, and you didn't say it wouldn't, but you were hoping. I don't know why you were hoping it's EA, but you were hoping it wouldn't happen.
I
I want you
I
all
was
to
hope
know I called it.
I was legitimately hoping they'd learned from Titanfall 2. Apparently, they learned from Warner Brothers doing something similar with Shadow of War.
Which which makes it even worse that this is the reason why I'm not getting Battlefield 2, and it's one reason why I'm not picking up Shadow of War.
Yo, yeah. Oh, yeah. I am putting my foot down on that. Battlefront 2 is a great game. I don't care how fantastic that single player campaign is. I don't care how great the gameplay is. The thing is, they've taken the progression curve of what should be a pretty satisfying FPS and tied it to RNG. Like there are these star cards you get, which basically give you unfair boosts to certain characters and heroes. So there's an element of pay to win, and there's no reason to get better at the game because win or lose, regardless of how good you do, you get the same amount of credits that you get in order to buy these loot boxes, or you could shell out money for extra more. It is it is the absolute destruction of progression and engagement that happened in Overwatch
Okay, I knew he
That
was gonna bring up
is
Overwatch because you had the same issue with Overwatch. Well, not the exact same issue, but you didn't like the RNG in
it,
it.
is basically the level that except Battlefront goes worse than that. It isn't just RNG for cosmetic stuff. It's RNG for
Right,
boosts to make you better. It's RNG for scrap in order to get new weapons. It's RNG to convert that scrap into a weapon you'll actually use. It's RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG, and that is all you get. You can't just unlock weapons by hitting a certain amount of challenge. You can't you can't get a gold weapon for saying you participate in competitive blah blah blah. This is what you have. It's something about that. It is basically, if this game was free to play, this would be the mechanic they would use to get you to buy. Except you're paying $60 up front. And of course, everybody's gonna justify it by saying, "Oh, but there's no season pass. They're gonna keep adding new stuff." And yeah, that's cute. Titanfall 2 did the same thing and didn't have to deal with
Yeah,
it.
that's kind of the double edge here. It's like the last Battlefront. Oh my goodness, the season pass was horrible, and I'm glad this time they're like, well, okay, we're doing microtransactions. We know we are, so we might as well just throw out the season pass, which would be fine if the RNG in it, if the loot boxes wasn't so gameplay focused and game breaking. You might as well just call
It's
it game
it,
breaking. That's what people hate about microtransaction. This is what people are worried about.
this is
Like with
blatant.
Overwatch, I give Overwatch a
This is
pass.
blatant. Yeah, Overwatch is cosmetic. I hate it personally, and I don't like that it facilitates a gambling habits. That's why I hate about RNG, especially about loot boxes. But this is basically pay to win, and that is dangerous.
Yeah, like this
And
is
what
stuff that people talk like with Shadow of War. It's basically pay
I've
to
been
win, and
raging,
that's for single
I've
player.
been I've been raging at this for years. You can vouch for me on this. I've been raging at this practice for years. And people have been saying, oh, it's not going to get that bad. It's just cosmetic. It's going to be perfectly fine. It's not going to get that bad. Now, loot boxes are being put into two very high profile games of acclaimed critical licenses this year within within roughly 90 days of each other. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going to sell millions of copies on the name alone and on the promise of delivering an authentic Star Wars experience. That's going to sell, and people are going to want to pay for those loot boxes. They're going to want to have the best boosts for their version of Kylo Ren or Boba Fett or whoever. They will want all the weapons. And the loot boxes are going to be what's going to happen. They're going to make a lot of money, and because of that, that's going to snowball into more games. Shadow of War is a single player game putting this in, and that's going to carry over if that's successful. This may be the instance where the dam breaks, and this practice truly becomes the norm for major AAA releases. And that makes me utterly scared. It actually got to the point where review critic aggregate site OpenCritic actually said they're going to take a stance against loot boxes by actively basically identifying games that do it and adjust their algorithm to deal with it. And that's saying something because the site I write for, thegamefanatics.com, we're on OpenCritic. So, we're basically part of that now. And once again, I've said this before, this is gambling. This is basically unregulated gambling for completely insubstantial goods.
Yeah, and
And
the thing
that
is, Blizzard sort of got in trouble for that internationally, and there's
oh, with the Diablo 3
yeah,
marketplace, yep.
and that's over cosmetics. And that's why they reduced the RNG numbers or the random the RNG percentages of what you actually get for duplicates. And EA has been doing this for years. They've been slowly adding in microtransactions to everything, single player games, and now now they're putting in their big AAA multiplayer focused games. Battlefront was doing it, but it was more like cosmetics. And when it comes
Well,
to what other game did they do it for? Oh, Dead Space 3.
that was the big one. That was the one that kind of started the
Yeah,
trend.
Dead Space 3 had it for Savages and Scraps for single player campaign. So you can just swift right through the single player without actually have to search for all the stuff that you need to craft new weapons, and it's just going to get worse because pretty soon it's going to be both. They already do it with Ubisoft already does it for Assassin's Creed.
They've been doing it ever since Assassin's Creed Unity. Like, I think I think the only major studios I know of that haven't been doing it, in terms of major publishers, has been Nintendo, and I swear to God, that's just been from a brand management perspective more so than a money making perspective.
Yeah, I mean Nintendo's always slow to catch on a trend, to jump on a trend.
And in this case, I'm actually glad for it.
You and everybody else, because I could see Splatoon having some form of microtransaction.
Oh, don't you dare do that, man. That is not Woomy Bro. Don't do it.
I mean, you want to look fresh? You got to open them squid boxes.
I will punch you in the face. When you and I finally meet each other in the flesh for the first time, when we're on the convention circuit, doing a panel about how we came to be where we are today and how cool it's going to be. Right before we shake hands, I will punch you in the face for that pun, and hold this episode as witness to that. I will do it.
I'll hold you to it. We're gonna reflect back on this, but yeah, microtransactions is getting worse. EA is somehow the worst at it, and they keep proving. And this is coming from Monolith. Well, I can't. I guess you can't really blame Monolith for it, for the microtransaction in Shadow of War, and it's all because of mobile games. These big businesses have slowly
Let's
been
keep
going into that because EA did with Demon
let's keep
Dungeon or
this
whatever.
closer to Star Wars, though, because as you said, this is going to be a much shorter
That's
episode,
supposed to be.
and it's supposed to be a shorter episode, but but basically, this is not a good look for Battlefront 2. This is not a good look for EA or Dice and Criterion. And this is coming from a big Star Wars fan. I love almost everything in the Star Wars universe. Like, don't even get me started on the Christmas special. Sorry, holiday special. But because of this major poisonous element, I will not be picking up this game. Unless, I get a review copy, at which point I will have to play it for the sake of a review, but I will not be paying money out of pocket for to pick up this thing at launch at full price, and even then, maybe not even in the bargain bin, because of this one major element. And many other critics and personalities and pundits have come out against this. As over Open Critic came out against it. Polygon, some people at Polygon were up against it. Jim Sterling and Joe Vargas, Angry Joe, have all been coming out against it. Just screaming, this cannot stand, this cannot continue. And the biggest problem I have is that if they have to justify this, like I've heard this complaint when it comes to major AAA studios, when it comes to development cost, they have to justify the larger investment because of that they need to dish out DLC and content. Now, here's the thing: if Battlefront 2 released the content they were boasting they were going to say and said season pass and got rid of the loot crates, I would have been fine with it. A season pass is not necessarily a bad idea if done properly. If the content is clearly still being worked on and couldn't be released to the game at launch and need to be paid a little bit extra, that's fine. Development costs have been going up and they need to justify that. Like if it's money for active content, I'm fine with it. Costs move on. You pay what you want, pay for your investment. Loot boxes is not content; it's gambling. That is actively dangerous. And yes, in theory, you get more money out of it, but it is just, ethically speaking, contentious. You're actively saying you hate your community by putting this in. You don't treat them with any respect. You don't treat your game with respect. You don't treat anything you are selling with respect. So why should I?
Well, the thing is, that's what it is. It's all just a business model, and that's all it is. They don't see customers; they see numbers, and numbers have shown that players are willing, whether because they don't have time to play games like they used to, or because they don't have the skills to keep up with others. So they want to do a shortcut. And again, Battlefield did it with their shortcut packs. Um, it's it's dangerous. Yes, I
Ex,
agree. It's
ex,
I
except for those minor situations, I can see that it's being justified. But that's not where the money is made from. It's made from the whales, the heavy spenders.
yeah, yeah, and I forget who it was, but some developer has admit that it's mostly for those who are impatient and who doesn't have the time, like everybody else, to spend 12 hours a day just playing online. So I was like, well, that's
Ex-
fine, but it shouldn't be anything game breaking. And I think that's the dangerous part. That's the biggest issue I have with Battlefront 2.
the time invested though is what you pay for whenever you buy the game up front. See that's my argument with
Oh
that.
no, no, no. I
You're
understand what you're saying. I agree. But what I was saying is that's what one of the developers, I forget who it was. It might have been from Monolith. But
no. I get that argument, but all the same, there are much more there's much more streamlined ways of doing that. I mean, and this is just an active bit of like I said before, it's manipulation, it's psychological warfare, it's nothing good, and I've mentioned this before. It actually destroys a game's long term. Okay, this is getting a bit more into my territory, but it just goes to show that just because you love a franchise, you could love it from the bottom of your heart. You could love this thing with a passion, take great things from it, take meaningful things from it, and you can still look at something wrong within it and point it out. And that's what I'm doing right now as the co-host of that random podcast show talking about Battlefront 2. I wish this game all the luck. I want these developers to make more Star Wars games. I want more Star Wars. I just love that world. But there has to be a better way of dealing with it than this. And I know that wishful thinking aside, this is going to be the turning point for what will happen with practices later on. But part of me really wishes that the fandom steps up and says no to this and make a statement saying we're better than this. It's a vain hope, but it's one
very.
I
That's man. That's Mary Poppins level
yeah,
of fantasy right there.
yeah it is pie in the sky. Like that's not going to happen. But here's the thing: where does it end? Shadow of War is a single player game. Where does that end? What's going to happen when the next Star Wars game comes out? It's a single player campaign, and it's supposed to be this big blockbuster experience. But every now and then you get you have to roll dice in order to get an upgrade to go to a certain spot to do a side mission, but you don't get the right rolls. You have to pay $5 to access more content that is already in the game. Where does that end? And
It's
that's the danger.
it's going to be a mixture of what Monolith, of what EA, of what Ubisoft is doing, and what Capcom has done. Uh, a lot of content on the disc, RNGs with a single player multiplayer hybrid where you can bring your single player character over to the multiplayer a la Destiny style. Only
It's
only now you can
it's
buy only your loot boxes work in both multiplayer and single player, but there will be two different loot boxes, one for single player and one
don't give
for
them
multiplayer.
ideas.
Hey, you
You shut your mouth. You shut your mouth. You are not giving them
I'm
ideas.
saying you're asking where it ends, and from what I've seen it, hypothetically, yeah,
It won't
it
end.
won't end. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just gonna get worse and
If
worse.
that's the point of a hypothetical, man, you're dragging this
Well,
out.
hey, I'm just saying. You said not to give him ideas. It's too late. That's my hypothesis.
I just saw a bunch of executives in the business room all collectively having a shattering orgasm, and I blame you for that.
I will receive my check now. Thank you.
That'll do it for us on this episode of That Random Podcast Show. If the content seemed a little bit thin this time around, ladies and gentlemen, it is because that I, your humble co-host, will actually be attending a local convention in the Harrisburg area in the state of Pennsylvania called Save Against Fear. It's going to be their ninth convention. It's basically a large board game convention where local developers, about local developers and of course local people will come by and of course help promote the cause of the event, which of course is to promote the well-being and maintenance and help for those with mental anxiety and social stress, using the great medium of board games and RPGs. I will be attending there as a member of the press. Going to be taking some photos. You can catch that on my Twitter accounts and on the Game Fanatics Instagram. And who knows, I may actually come up with some interesting stories to tell on the official website of thegamefanatics.com. So keep yourselves posted with that, and you can follow me on Twitter. You see more. That's at Darth Rahu, capital D, capital R, all one word. And of course, as always, you can catch my admittedly sparse but still in-depth thoughts on various nerd culture things at cybertavern.blogspot.com. Michael, what about you?
I too will be going to a convention this weekend. Oh, what a quinky dink. I will be going to the Expo, that's XPO Game Festival, right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is about like an hour and a half away from me. I will also be holding my own little panel down there where I'll talk about journalism and how you go from video game journalism to content creator and how that whole content creating field has changed journalism, both for the better and for the worst. That's be from October 13th to the 15th. And you can, of course, find me on Twitter at M_MOSLEY. And of course, if for some strange reason you can't find me there, you can find me with my Twitter handle of Zafmod. And I will not be streaming anytime soon due to me being busy with the festival and the podcast, because it's going to be a lot of editing going on as we try to play catch up
Actual
with these festivals.
That also reminds me, I am also still streaming on Twitch at DigiDesperado26, and every Friday I've been playing Resident Evil 7 in honor of Halloween. I'm up to part 3 of my stream. Feel free to check that out. And of course, as always, that random podcast show you can catch on YouTube, like some horrible person that doesn't like fun. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Or you can also catch us on Anchor and Apple Music. If I recall, I think we're on there. We're still working on Google Play. Stay tuned, folks, on that
Well,
one.
actually, we're on Google Play now. Yeah,
Woo!
yes.
Moving on up!
Yeah, since the last episode, we are now on Google Play, Apple Music, and YouTube, and of course, thanks to Anchor, we were able to get on Google Play. So thank you, Anchor.
Yay, thank you. And I think that will do it for this. It originally started as a short episode, and we're up to an hour. I think that'll do it for this episode of That Random Podcast Show, ladies and gentlemen. Michael, do you have anything left to say?
9 more seasons. I don't care if it takes 9 more podcast seasons. We're gonna
What are you talking about?
we're gonna figure out this Mulan sauce
What?
thing.
What? What? What?
We're gonna do this. We're gonna figure this out.
Sauce? Bullet sauce? What? I don't even know.
Good night, folks.
Well,